Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another Gronkin Pod. It's been a while since we did one of these, but we have a stacked panel here to go over a topic that sounds like it should be a simple black and white topic.
Shut your fucking mouth! No problem, John.
I'm leaving that in the cut. Fuck you, Cream. But it has actually caused a bit of an argument with everything that's going on. So with all that said, let's get started. Cream is going to take the reins of this one because this has been an argument that's been going on with many of us. And yes, we are joined by John Graham for this special topic. Cream, the floor is yours.
Yes. Okay. So this actually came to my mind during the whole Dragon Age Veilguard shit, right? Everyone was arguing whether it was successful or not, but no one could actually define what it meant to actually be successful, which is kind of important if you're arguing if something's successful or not. You should be able to define what a successful game is. And I got to thinking, I'm like, I don't know if I can fully pinpoint down what a successful game is. And I have a couple of things that I'm going to bring up. This is something that Moz actually grabbed for me. Big Bad Mazza. And we're just going to, this is a good, I think, starting off point for what we're going to be talking about today. So let's go here first. Apparently, this is somewhat sweet. Apparently, 700,000 players at launch is super impressive.
70,000.
Yeah, the 70 would be concerning. 70,000 players at launch is super impressive for a Western style RPG. 3 of these were controversial at launch. 2 of these are literally new IPs, right? So basically going off and saying, hey, look at these games. They're way more successful. Like, I mean, the closest is over double what Dragon Age had. So, and they're in the same genre, you know. So obviously, then Dragon Age isn't successful because of these. But then we get this one that comes up that's kind of the devil's advocate.
This dude's a wanker, but anyway.
Yeah, this dude is, kind of a dickhead, but he's not fully wrong when he says, you know, look at that. Witcher 3, I would say that's one of the best, RPG games we've had in a long time. 103,000 as a peak, which is only like 1 or 2,000, maybe 3 or 4,000 more than what Dragon Age had. Really not much higher. There's games that are great that have just above it, just below it. I mean, Red Dead 2 is obviously a great game, but more people are playing Dragon Age at launch than Red Dead. Now, there could be a couple factors that lead into that, but if we go into it, we see that there's a lot of great games that have less people playing as an all-time peak, which to me kind of shows that that's not a metric we can measure it by, but it is kind of important to include that. So really, I think we'll start off with you, John. What is something that people need to take into effect when they're trying to say a game is great or a game is not great? What would you say are important factors to consider?
Yeah, I mean, you can measure it in a number of different ways based on what your interests are. Like, if you're an executive, for example, you're probably only going to be looking at sales, concurrent players, never mind whether, the story or the dialogue is shit. There's certain things, like if it has high concurrent players, it probably plays well, so it's probably not that bad, but it can still be like rough in some regard. And there's a lot of games that are quality and they get neglected just because the market is so saturated with products. In my view, I think a game really fails when its deepest appreciators are let down by it. I don't really factor in like the sales or whatever. Like the same thing of like movies and television. I remember like the Transformers movies, the Michael Bay ones. It's like the trailer comes out, it's like the #1 movie in the world. It's like, well, that's just like based on box office numbers, right? I mean, I went to go see those movies and all of them were fucking dog shit. I think Bumblebee was the only one I actually liked. That wasn't even Michael Bay. And then like the Halo show, for example, people were saying like, "Oh, look how many views it's got on Paramount Plus. Like that means it's a successful show." And it's like, no, because all the Halo fans fucking hated it. You know, like I can't see that show as a success, and definitely can't be regarded that now because it got its third season canceled. It wasn't greenlit for another one. So with games, I mean, you know, you have your games that everybody agrees is really good and they perform really well financially. Great example of that, I think, is Grand Theft Auto. You know, it's just it does everything excellently in every aspect. It's also on the cutting edge of like software and graphics rendering. You have like your stuff that's shit and everybody agrees it's shit and it doesn't do financially well, like ET for Atari or Superman 64 or whatever, right? But then you have, you know, your games that are financially successful, but they're shit, like Dragon Age Veilguard I've observed recently, which is just full of, I think, very, very politically ideological dialogue. It's just loaded with that stuff. And just like cringe in general, where you don't really believe any of the interactions. And I'm just looking at gameplay of that going like, how can anybody get invested in this story? It feels like so fake and stupid. But I think it's doing well in terms of sales. And then you have something like Modern Warfare 3, where I'm not sure of the sales figures of that, but like it came out, it was hype for it, but it was just shit because it was just lazily thrown together, open world, Warzone elements thrown in, or like repurposed for a very loosely put together campaign. And so I tend to look past all like this sort of the numbers and the concurrent players of it and just assess the quality of it. But that's just me as a consumer. It can change, you know, like I said before, based on whether you're an executive at a company or whatever. This is sort of my rough thoughts. Sorry if I went on too long there.
No, not at all. I mean, I kind of agree with what you have to say, like not wholeheartedly, but you know what I mean, like pretty much in full. It's one of these things where I think what I found going through it was I couldn't give you a straight answer of what is successful and what wasn't. I think there is a lot of subjectivity that is there. I mean, there are some objective things, right? Like if a game breaks its financial targets or if it has a certain amount of people playing it, stuff like that is objective. But then there's the subjective of what actually is in the game, right? Whereas with Dragon Age Veilguard, as much as I think we all agree, them putting the what do you call it, the fucking option of oof as dialogue in the game is shit.
Yeah,
it's also a subjective thing. I mean, there's no way to objectively prove that is shit. It's just an impossibility, which is what makes it really, really difficult. Now, John O, we go from John to John O. John O, I remember when Dragon Age came out, you were actually very quick to say it was not doing well.
Yeah, and from when I said that, I was looking at like the financial factors, just strict to what we were given. I would just gauge my own gauge on it, whether they would make their money back. And considering over the past 8 to 10 years, the game has been developed in pre-production and all that stuff. I really didn't see it. Even now, I don't see it making its money back for the short time that it's been out so far. With the and considering just those things, the financial factors, when you see a game, a AAA BioWare making a AAA product, putting in all kinds of time and investment into that game, and to see it come out at these particular results for a well-known franchise that has been going on for 10, 15 years now, that has been beloved. It is one of the most beloved dark fantasy games that was out there. And looking at the the numbers, I was expecting 100 to 200,000 concurrent players, at least with Steam. But even considering that, where everybody's trying to use Steam, just the Steam charts as the numbers to factor in games that were coming out today and games that were coming out 10, 15 years ago that didn't even launch on Steam. So it's like everybody's trying to have their own perspective at this, like a subjective like determination on whether this game is currently successful or not. And for some people, they're seeing it's still got some sort of like success elsewhere, maybe finance, but that's it. With finance, we still don't have the numbers. We don't have the budget for the production of this game. We don't have any of the sales units sold based on whether it's on Steam or out on on the Xbox or elsewhere. It's really and which is what really sucks about this is seeing all the conflict go on about this game, whether or not it's successful or failures. Everybody's throwing in their own subjective opinions on it. Now, for me, what I see is like strict, like we're talking objective success. Yeah, I would fall down to like how much money you put into making the product and how many units have sold, how much money you got back from that. When it and then there's another factor that comes into play as well, which is the like cultural success, societal success, how it runs with word of mouth. How what are people saying about this game? And for a lot of things, it's very like controversial. People are having really big problems with the decisions that were made in the game, like the oof, which it's in a dark fantasy game that's supposed to like have a depiction of that sort of like society. We don't, bringing in modern language that has only been around in the last 5-10 years and like the normal lexicon of common folk, it really kind of like disconnects you. It takes you out of the seat of escape from reality because it brings it right back in. And there's a few things like with Veilguard in particular that have been thrown into play with that game. And that's what a lot of people were like getting aggravated and frustrated with. That being said, there were a lot of people that were celebrating this game, enjoying what it was. There wouldn't be this many players still playing it today if it wasn't didn't have some sort of success going on for culturally.
I'll add one thing to what John said there. You talk about the cultural aspect of it. How does Veilguard affect Dragon Age going forward? Because I think it's very possible that while this game is potentially a success, depending on finances and all that shit, I don't see a reality where this increases the popularity of Dragon Age. I think going forward, assuming there is another Dragon Age in a few years, interest has drastically declined because of this game.
Absolutely. That would be certainly something.
That was actually going to be my point. Because Last of Us 2 sold really well, but I count that as a failure because it killed the franchise. Last of Us 3, there's going to be really... The hype didn't get... 75% of the hype got cut away. You know what I mean? Like, there's going to be sales because there was some people that did like it, right, and screamed about it, but the sales will nowhere be near as close as 2. But the thing is, a lot of people didn't even buy 2 because of the leaks early, right? So it's going to do... Like 3 is going to do really bad, and I can't like the reason why I count that as a failure because it killed the franchise. It's kind of like what John was saying is how do the hardcore fans feel about the game? If you piss them off and you kill the franchise, but even though you make a shit ton of money now, but later on you're going to be losing a shit more. So technically, Last of Us 2 killed the franchise, so I count that as a failure. So something like that, it all depends how you treat the franchise because. Like Lethal said, for the next one, the hype isn't going to be there. A lot of the people that played this one to see if this one would be shit aren't going to play the next one. You know what I mean? Like, there's like what you do for the next game matters so much. For the franchise. I mean, look what Halo 5 did. I'd count that as a failure, even though it sold well. Halo Wars 2 had to fucking kick it to the next notch to really make people happy with the Halo franchise again. And Halo Infinite kind of brought it back a bit more as well, but it's still damaged as fuck because of Halo 5. So that game is definitely a failure. So sometimes like money is like for companies, of course, like John was saying, it is such a big thing, and that's how you get the sequel is by making the money. So if you don't make the money, you don't get the sequel. But at the same time, forever lasting damage, like fucking up the franchise like this, is as bad sometimes for the franchise, story wise and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's sometimes, I guess, to your point, you can't really tell success right away. And that's the thing with Dragon Age 2. We don't know the budget for the game yet. I don't believe that anything like that is public. We don't even really know the earnings. We can estimate it based off the Steam sales. And then if we assume that, the consoles are a little bit less than that. Like we can make assumptions on what it has, but we don't have any concrete proof yet.
Just to bring it home with what
yeah.
I was saying about like the culture aspect of how much of a success it is, especially like with these days where any games that try to have this like political point or political message that goes on, there's this always this huge like immediate instant action battle that goes on within the culture war about this game. It becomes like just weaponized by one side and the other, and we lose the reality of things when it's just all about the culture war and stuff, and don't look at the straight numbers of things. If we all just gauge how you will, have your own opinion about things, but if you try to make it like make a supreme decision about these things and an ultimate decision about the game itself, and then it comes out later that the game actually made its money back and actually did have a financial success, and people were playing it, you look like a freaking idiot.
Yep. Well, you know what? With that, we'll go to Mr. Autism himself, Nosmir. What is success for a game? What does that entail? Please elaborate us with your autistic wisdom.
I'll give the answer now, the definitive. No, well, I'll tread on a bit of ground that you guys spoke on, which is like the numbers and how the Mason and how they don't necessarily track well. For example, I could say the Total War franchise. I'm the Total War nerd. Rome 2 dropped with the massive, huge anticipation, and it had a peak of all-time player base on Steam for around about 168,000 players, which was the highest it's ever seen. But Rome 2 was so bad that the very next game, Attila, didn't even see like 50,000. It lost, like 60%, 70% of its player base, and that trend continued on until they had to like latch onto the Warhammer IP to then get that boost back up, and Three Kingdoms, which was a brand new target market with China. And we can say like when they're posting like, oh, well, these games are successful, posting pure Steam numbers, it's a target that's a bit ludicrous. For example, like 400,000 players. We went through the SteamDB all-time like concurrent players, and it's only above 400,000. It's like from 12 to 16 games out of all of Steam that have ever hit that. So to be like that's the benchmark of success for AAA may be a bit high. Like that other guy that you guys I can't remember, Kate Bush's husband, he then showed like lots of games that do around about the same as Dragon Age Veilguard. So it looks like that's generally the benchmark, the standard benchmark for those AAA games. Some people will say, oh, well, those are older games. I went back and I saw that Payday 3, before people found out it was trash, it still got a peak of 100,000 on the day one release. Yeah, see, so I do agree that maybe Veilguard should have hit between, encroaching the 200,000 numbers, but at the same time, maybe Dragon's Dogma caused fatigue. Obviously, there are a lot of people who don't like, culture things that may have like lost a few thousand right there. However, getting back onto what is judged as a success, we are not investors. We're not investors in their stocks. We're not executives. So I agree with John's assessment there that we don't make the money. So it doesn't really matter to me. It should be based on how you enjoy that game and how it saw you through. If you can rate it and you can justify how much you rate it and how well it did mechanically as a video game, in its story, its presentation, its systems, and how the mechanics work, I think that's more than enough.
Yeah, I would agree with the numbers shit. That's stupid, because then right then and there, no indie game can be a success if you're going off base numbers, right? A couple, something like Among Us, which was developed by two people, that game is one of the biggest games in the world, but that's a fucking outlier. Most indie games are very small. There's not a lot of people playing them, but there's a lot of great indies out there. We've showcased a bunch on Gronking.
Manor Lords.
And there's bad.
Gotta mention Manor Lords.
Manor Lords, yeah, exactly. But there's also bad indies out there. One thing before I kick it over to Lethal to give his opinion, which is probably about as bald as his head. Figure out what you will with that. I think there are times we can say something is a success from the fans' point of view, right? Something like I don't know. Let's go with Space Marine 2. Right? That game sold really well. Financially, it's a success. It also was a really good game. It just, everyone who I saw play it loved it. I think that's a game where you can say objectively it is successful. Now, if you go to something like Concord, right? Just to use that example, we could use Anthem, as much as Nosimir and me love Anthem, but it's not a good game. Or Brink, or Haze. Remember Haze? Anyone else remember it? That game was fucking awful.
Underrated.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. But with those games, but maybe not Haze. Haze actually probably did sell well back in the day, because fucking why not? But something like Concord, something like Concord did not sell well, and nobody liked it. Right? So that's where you can say, oh, this game is objectively dog shit. And everything else in the middle, I find a hard time categorizing. There's a little bit of black, a little bit of white, and then this giant shade of gray that is almost impossible to narrow down, but we're going to try to narrow it down here, ladies and gentlemen. Lethal, do you have any sage-like advice on narrowing this down, or are you just going to fucking say some gay shit?
It's time for some gay shit. No, but earlier on today's stream, actually, we talked about a game called Lollipop Chainsaw Repop, which is a remake, remaster, whatever you want to call it, of a cult classic game that came out about 12 years ago. And back in the day, it was a failure. It just didn't, it got buried. It was 2012. You could argue gaming was at its peak then, but it just got absolutely buried. But it was always a cult classic. It got re-released in September. And today we saw that the parent company was saying that the game was a massive success for them, that it blew away all their expectations. And when you go and look at the Steam numbers, this game never cracked 1,000 players, below 1,000 players. And
There's
it's still
27 people
there's
playing
27
it today
people.
at the
Yeah.
peak.
Yep. But it's still considered a massive success. Now, I don't know if it sold well on the Switch or on PlayStation, Xbox, whatever. But I would say, just based off the Steam numbers, that looks like a pretty big failure to me. But I think where the difference is with this one is maybe their expectations were very low for this game, not because it's bad. Like I said, it's a cult classic, but maybe because they just did not expect it to do that well, because it was coming out against Space Marine 2 and Black Myth Wukong, which I would say both are objectively successful in every way. All of a sudden, there's a lot more hype for Black Myth Wukong, their DLCs and sequels and whatnot. Space Marine 2, everyone's pretty hyped for a sequel or DLC. And a quick little side tangent, the other day I was actually in the Warhammer shop near me talking to the dude there, and he said that ever since Space Marine 2, he's had more customers. So that's an objective success. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But something like Lollipop Chainsaw Repop, incredibly low numbers, but maybe they didn't need it to sell that much. Maybe it didn't cost that much to actually make or port over or whatever they did. So they don't need to sell as many copies. So that can still be a success. A success is a very broad term, because like Nazma said, a lot of times we look at success as it had 1 million players. It has to pull Cyberpunk first 24 hours numbers to even be on that level. But that's not fair, because that's the higher echelon of numbers. If there's a deep, like, think about to like Avengers Endgame. It doesn't matter if the objective best movie in the world came out the same time as Avengers Endgame. It was probably going to fail.
Mm-hmm.
You could say the same thing here.
Titanfall.
There's an interesting
Titanfall 2, Nier Automata, Miguel 2B, cult classic, amazing success. But did it really sell that well in the grand scheme of things?
what though? that's an interesting thing that you bring up Lollipop Chainsaw, because I kind of have a hard time saying the original is a failure because everyone who played it fucking loved it. It didn't sell well, but also everyone who did play it thought it was fucking great.
It got that
And then you
hardcore
look at
audience.
the repop, the remake of it, or the remaster, sorry, and it sold really well, apparently, according to the company, which why would they lie about that, right? It would fuck them over financially if they did. There would be a lot of problems. But what I've seen from it is kind of a glitchy mess, at least at launch. It's kind of in the same position, but the tables are turned. Whereas the quality of the remaster is down, the financial success is up, but that's inverse to what it was when it originally came out.
I'll just finish what I was saying about Nier Automata. You know, like it sold well, but in the grand scheme of things, compared to everything else, not even close. Are we now going to say Nier Automata is a failure?
Oh yeah, I mean, and that's one of the ones that's up here from Kate Bush's husband, which is a shit name.
For a shit person.
Shit name, shit person. They probably don't even listen to Kate Bush. They probably listen to fucking Flock of Seagulls or some gay shit. Look at that. Nier Automata down at the bottom. 23,000 people who played it at launch.
Now, I don't know. Was it on Steam at launch?
And that's the thing. Something like Ghost of Tsushima wasn't on Steam at launch, and I don't think Red Dead was either.
No, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't.
Well, specifically with Nier Automata, that game was fucking busted on PC for a long time.
Yeah.
Same with Arkham Knight.
Yeah. But all right, something that didn't come out busted, and I count as a success because people are hyped for the next one, Silent Hill 2. It had a peak of 23,676, right? And I count that as success because the fans are hyped for the next game. People are actually talking about Silent Hill again as a franchise. Before this, like the one previously, I'm pretty sure it had a bigger player base. Silent Hill Message. I'm actually not sure about that, so don't count that. But before until this
scratch
game,
that out of the record.
yeah, scratch that out. Before this game, no one was talking about Silent Hill. And people thought this was going to be a failure because of all the trailers. And those trailers, it would have done a lot better if the trailers were better.
Some people are insisting that this game is a failure, even though it's out already. People are insisting that the gameplay is bad, which is wild because I don't think any of them have played it. I haven't had a chance to play it. But everything I've seen looks actually all right. But that's a good example, Moz.
Let me just add one more thing to what Mozza was talking about. That kind of ties in with what me and Mozza were both talking about.
Yeah.
Spider-Man 2 cost $315 million to make. More expensive than any Spider-Man movie. It sold very well, but did it make much money because of its high budget? And are people as excited going into Spider-Man 3 as they were from Spider-Man 1 into Spider-Man 2?
And dude,
absolutely fucking not.
And dude, people aren't excited for Wolverine because of it. People aren't excited about the rumored Venom game because of it. Like, it destroyed not just like the Spider-Man franchise, but it destroyed the Wolverine one that they were trying to do. Fuck, it kind of damaged their reputation as a
I don't know about destroyed, but it definitely hurt them.
I think the leaks for Wolverine had more to do with that game's hype losing than Spider-Man, to be fair. Like, those leaks were not good.
But
Jean Grey's looking a bit man-jawish.
Yeah, but with the writing of it, we believe the writing's like that because of Spider-Man 2. If Spider-Man 2 hadn't come out, we'd be like, okay, fine, we'll give it the benefit of the doubt, right? But because of Spider-Man 2, we're like, oh no, that's actually how they write. That's actually, this is actually shit. Yeah.
So. And on that point again, there was one of the examples of the great success was fucking Starfield. Does anyone think that's a good, successful game? Or do you think that has now put a massive question mark over Bethesda in regards to like the next Elder Scrolls?
Same with Cyberpunk.
Yep.
Cyberpunk got bailed out by an anime.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of cases where a game, that's the thing. And that's why this has kind of been through my head the last while, because I'm autistic and weird. But just trying to pin down what the fuck is a success. What is it? Like, we know objectively good, objectively bad, but there's this giant fucking like part where the circles cross over in the middle, which is basically the entire circle of fucked if I know. And yeah, I mean, I guess we'll just kind of riff off of, maybe we bring up I think maybe I bring up a couple games to you guys, and we kind of argue whether it's a success or not. I have a feeling we'll probably all have somewhat in agreement of if it's successful or not, but I don't know. I mean, like,
I think the way you've charted it all out, Cream, is accurate. I mean, on either extreme end, you have products that are objectively successful in all metrics, regardless of who you are, regardless of what your interests are, whether you're a gamer, whether you're an executive. Everybody can point to the same thing and be like, this did really well, that did really shit. And then you have this big gray area that varies based on what you're looking for in a game, which changes among all kinds of people, right? Even among gamers themselves, they're all looking for different things in video games potentially. And a lot of the time, it's important, especially in such an oversaturated market, because I mean, this industry is massive. You really have to take into account when you put something out in relation to every other thing that's coming out. Because if you get dwarfed by like a larger, more hyped product, even if what you have to offer is really good, it can just get swallowed. I mean, and this is true for games, this is true for movies, this is true for hardware. I mean, the Dreamcast, a lot of people consider a failed console, but it's one of my favorite consoles personally. I think it really innovated in a number of ways. I love this little memory cards. They were like little Game Boys, VMUs.
I believe it was the first one to have online play as well.
That's right, but it had dial-up, and the technology is right on the cusp of broadband. Xbox came out like pretty quick after it and just killed it because everybody was broadband at that point. That was the thing, and it was just bad timing in a way. It's just like, fuck, should have put I mean, I think a broadband accessory might have come out to like modify it so you could play on a higher speed line, but at that point it was too late. You know, the Xbox sensation like that had opened up online console gaming to like a massive audience of casual gamers, and then at that point it was over. They just dominated the market, and it's a shame because I wanted to.
Shenmue came out.
Right,
that's the most important part is Shenmue, especially the part with the forklift. Who doesn't remember Shenmue, guys? But no, I would agree. It's hard to say that like the Dreamcast was a failure because I think it was super innovative. I would say it was ahead of its time, and also the dial-up thing. Yeah, it's maybe was a little bit behind the times at the exact same. You know, it managed to be both ahead and behind of the times.
Yeah.
But I think
it also only had the one thumbstick, and at that point, twin sticks was becoming a huge thing, right? It's like that's just sort of a thing you expect now with controllers, and so that was another thing that Dreamcast kind of fucked up on, where it's just like, we should have just waited another year just to examine the playing field and see what else is coming out, and then we can innovate on what everybody else is putting out. But they just missed the mark. Sometimes you do everything you can to make a product good and do well, but it's not up to you. There are forces at play in the market that just fuck you sometimes.
Yeah,
there's nothing you could have done.
Just to add on that too, in regards to like how the company determines whether it's a success or not, that really, they can always come out when they feel like they're proud of the success of what it is. There's no problem for them to come out and boast particular numbers. Very often you see a lot of companies when they have their game launch and it is released and they get a certain amount of sales, like with Space Marine 2, what they sold 4 million units across all platforms. That's great success. And that's another thing that helps people, outside of the the ins and outs of what money they're making or whatever success there is, be able to gauge properly, like how, like, is it really a success based on those numbers that they're actually giving and providing to the public.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at your games, Cream. Let's hear them.
I would totally agree. I'm just going to bring up a couple games. I'm actually going through my Steam library now, so may not be there's a lot of shit in here, I'm going to be honest. But let's go through a couple games, and I'm just going to kind of throw them out there, and I'm going to give you You guys can interrupt each other as much as you want. You want to kick someone in the head? That's fine.
I'm
too.
not letting John talk.
Which one?
Yeah.
Boy,
Is it both? And we'll just kind of see if we can kind of. I'll put it off at some point, and we'll see if we can get a consensus whether the game was good or bad. All right. Now we're gonna start off with a pretty fucking contentious one, and I know Nosmir is gonna burst a fucking aneurysm in his skull when I say Cyberpunk. Was
Shit.
Cyberpunk a successful game or not?
fuck no. I killed the franchise. Fucking anime to fucking save its bitch ass. As an anime, that franchise going to the fucking moon. As a game franchise, they can go fuck themselves. Not one line. The fucking missions are repetitive, boring as fuck, and Chinese bitch. There's a reference for you. But yeah, no, fuck that game. Fuck the people that went back to the DLC. Even the DLC didn't give what they promised. Yeah, no.
I should
But there
say,
is an interesting point though with
the DLC
Cyberpunk
did
was
sell well.
this DLC
Yeah, it
sold
did.
very well, but launch Cyberpunk was record number of refunds as well. If I remember correctly, it was the first time PlayStation did digital refunds ever.
Yeah.
And I remember I had the game on PS4 and I rang up PlayStation support to get my refund. And the first thing he asked me was, is this for Cyberpunk?
Yeah, it's no, well, one thing's for sure, because of the massive hype for that game, because everybody was looking forward to for it when it came out. Pre-orders were wild, and even with the like just the little factor with Steam DB having 1 million concurrent players at a certain time, there units wise financially, it seems like they succeeded. By the looks of it, we still don't know how much money it took to make the game, how much money they made out of selling the game on all the platforms. But culturally, it's very contentious.
I mean, we've talked about this before. I have a slightly, or perhaps significantly warmer opinion of Cyberpunk. I actually enjoyed the story. I played it on PC. The only issues I had with it were graphical, like objects freezing in midair. There's nothing that affected the gameplay for me. The one thing that I find egregious about the Cyberpunk launch was the previous gen console releases, which were objectively fucked. I don't think they even ran above like 15 frames per second or something like that. It was just like shockingly bad. It's just like you shouldn't have put it out in that state. You should have known better. You probably did know better, but you rushed it anyway to appease your shareholders or whatever, and then now they're pissed at you because you did the thing that you thought would satiate them, and it ended up like, no, this is not the way to go about this. Like, do better next time. And but like, I actually enjoyed the campaign, playing it through on computer. So like, in my view, I really liked Cyberpunk. I thought it was a really engaging experience. I know you mean, Mazza, about the repetition getting on your nerves, but like, I had that same problem with Red Dead. I had a bigger problem with Red Dead Redemption 2 in
you
that regard, to
fucking
be honest.
slut! What
the repetition of
No!
sorry, the fucking constant horseback riding and just shooting a bunch of guys and riding your fucking horse again. I got bored with it, man.
Holy shit,
I
yeah,
got
but you
bored.
get interesting cool characters. Whereas I go into Cyberpunk, they're all the same fucking mob bosses, but one's a fat black dude, one's a Chinese bitch, and they're all the same fucking person somehow. And it's like, what the fuck? Whereas I go to fucking Red Dead, I get this cool redneck motherfucker, and then I go down there and I get this sissy boy that's scared of the West, and they're all fucking different and unique. And it's fucking amazing. You take that back, you son of a bitch.
You could certainly say that about about like all the side characters, the side missions, those little gang leaders that you have to go hunt down and kill in Cyberpunk. But when it comes to like the main story, a lot of the characters, they were very compelling. Like with the particular chicks that you met along the way, even the cop guy, they had very compelling stories. And for me, I dropped 200 out. Yeah, about 200 hours into Cyberpunk. I played through that game, played through twice. I enjoyed it thoroughly, even though it was a very like, the ending kind of aggravated me, melancholy, but the story was great. I enjoyed it, but there was that being said too, with that game, they went once they got Keanu Reeves into that, they completely went off of rails.
I'm glad you brought up Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, because the second Keanu came into play into that game, they just completely skirted off the idea, the core idea of what Mike Pondsmith had for the game, because his baby is Cyberpunk. That is his creation.
I will just butt in to say Keanu's kind of a double-edged sword here, because it did take away from the quality of the game, but it also brought a lot of people in to play the game who would have maybe not played it in the first place. And can we just point out that Mazza did just go, it's like, you meet a sissy boy. I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, we can make an emphasis of that. But Naz probably actually is the most autistic about this.
Yeah, critically on the release, massive failure. Financially, it could be successful, but like I said, I'm not an investor. I'm not an executive suit who profits from this. So I'm basing it purely on the gameplay and the game itself. And like, again, the story didn't really grip me that much. Yeah, there was one character, Jackie. I think everyone loves Jackie, and they just bump him off. Spoilers. Jackie death. Trigger warning.
Oh shit.
They bump him off quickly for the Keanu thing. And it's like Mozza said, or John said, which is it was Mike Pondsmith's baby, and they did not do it justice for what I was expecting, and kind of what they promised with one set piece mission that had multiple branching pathways, which is the one where you go get the spider bot, where they advertise that, and you thought every single mission that you do in the main story at least was going to have like 6 different routes, multiple entry points. You're storming the buildings, you're going through the subway, you're skydiving in, you're crawling in through the walls. It's not that. It was just that one set piece mission that allowed that. So in terms of like as an RPG, which it was promised as, and then at the last minute they changed it to action adventure game, I'm still going to say it's as an RPG, it's a failure because of just the complete lack of role playing. You pick a street kid, you pick one of those nomads, you pick a corpo, and it just railroads you into the story of V. The gangs themselves, they don't really have any interaction other than just go here, kill people in the side missions. And if you aren't vibing with the Keanu Reeves breaking up your gameplay as you're playing the story, breaking up the game and making you faint, and then taking control and taking agency away from the character, which can piss a lot of people, pisses me off. It can be seen as a failure. So I would say maybe financial success. Critically, for me as a game, it's a failure.
What's next on your list, Cream?
Well, let's just call it to like a 1 second vote. I'm gonna go through. I'm gonna ask everyone. I just want them to give me yes or no. All right, John, was Cyberpunk a success?
Based on what I want from a game, yes.
Okay, Nosmir, was Cyberpunk a success?
Based off what I want from an RPG Cyberpunk game, no.
All right, John O, was Cyberpunk a success?
Based on the amount of hours I got into it and still enjoyed it, succeeded.
The name John's just fucked, isn't it? It's the name John, isn't it?
All right, I can assume Moz. I can assume what Moz thinks. Lethal.
It's fucking shit.
Lethal, what do you think? You're kind of the tiebreaker here, Lethal.
Was it a success? Did I like it? No.
No. It just
was it a success? It was a success.
Factor in everything. I want you to factor in quality, financial. I want you to take every factor possible and throw it into one and come out with one answer. So was it a success?
Oh.
Yeah, I know. It's hard.
Oh, shit. I think it was
Moz
at the end of the day. And in the grand scheme of things, it was because, yes, I know all the shit I brought about the refunds and how it got fucking roasted and the CEO had to come out and apologize and all that good shit, right? But it did, and it did hurt CPPR, absolutely. But it did lead them to the creation of the anime, which did do a massive renewed interest for the game, and people went back to the game. It led to the DLC, and the DLC sold well. So was launch Cyberpunk 2077 a success? Absolutely not, because of all the refunds and people just hated it, and it was a broken game. But at the end, when it was all said and done, it was a success. It took time, it took years, but it was.
That's right. Gronking is now a pro Cyberpunk podcast. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. I got 2 more hypotheticals for you. All right. And this one is the third one's gonna be it's gonna be a wild one. I don't know. I think we may get a unanimous yes on that one.
I can't wait to read the comments on this one.
Oh yeah. I mean, no matter what, somebody's gonna hate something you said, but that's the thing. It's such a fucking wild, open-ended statement that you can't even really be right or wrong. Either way, you're just kind of shit a little bit, in some aspect. So yeah, 3-2, Cyberpunk is a success. All right, let's get to this one. This one's going to be contentious. Star Wars Battlefront 2 by DICE.
Ooh, that's a good one.
That's a hard one. I know.
Yeah.
Look at Lethal. He wants to say no, but there are factors you have to keep into account. The game does have a constant player base.
This game is not a success. This is not a fucking... No, it's not a success. Laws got changed because of how predatory this fucking game is. This game, we're talking about, dedicated fan bases and all this type of shit. This game came out around the time of Last Jedi. So Star Wars fans were ready to fucking eat each other at this stage. Okay? And this game comes out with the most predatory shit we had ever seen in a game like this. That laws got changed. This game was advertised as an Imperial campaign for like 2 fucking levels. Right? And then it became, oh, look at this woman. She's the fucking hero of the rebellion type of shit. It turns out she's down with Princess Leia, but never fucking mentioned that at all and all that type of shit, right? People forget how fucking broken this game was. I had this game 3 days early because I pre-ordered it because I was still a Star Wars guy then. Palpatine could fucking shoot through walls. I'll say that again. Palpatine could shoot through walls.
Guess he's just
he had an ability. He had an ability that had like a dark like fucking vortex around him, and that shit could go through walls. He could use his force lightning through walls. They did updates to this game where they would change something like Boba Fett's jetpack, and somehow changing Boba Fett's jetpack means that throwing Darth Maul's lightsaber did no damage when it hit a target. I remember when they released General Grievous. Yeah, General Grievous in this game was not a launch character. They released General Grievous, and his most iconic move, spinning his fucking lightsabers, did no damage. There was times at this game where if you were playing as Luke Skywalker and you tried to use your force push, if the enemy that you were trying to attack was on a slightly different elevation to you, it wouldn't register. So they could just have one step up on a ledge, you force push them, doesn't register. The amount of fucking broken shit that was in this game for a long fucking time, and some of it still hasn't been fixed ever. It's incredible, man. They ran out of ideas during their space battles section of the game, where they added Yoda's starfighter as a hearable character. Because we all remember that scene in that Star Wars movie where Yoda hops in his spaceship and just wipes out a fucking whole starship of Confederacy droids. Remember that part? I fucking don't. That was never there.
Wild. You weren't watching the right version. I was watching the George Lucas cut. It was pretty wild.
Greetings, my friends. But no, this shit never fucking... This game was a busted piece of shit. It still is a busted piece of shit. This game, you can say that, it went on, sold well, and they did a decent job to retain their players and get their players back with that big overhaul that they did. But it was so fucking bad that when they inevitably dropped this game... Now, keep in mind, they dropped this game when it was starting to claw its way back. They dropped it to make Battlefield 2042. That's a whole other argument. But if this game was such a success, why did they instantly shut down the idea of a Battlefront 3? Because this game's failure was coming off the previous Battlefront's failure. You can't tell me this game is successful. This game killed a franchise to the point where they had to go back to the well of the good ones. And granted, they fucked that up too, but that's a whole other thing. But EA Battlefront 2 is a failure.
I think there is an argument to it being
No, there's not.
Success. I don't want to argue it, but I think there is. Someone could argue that this game was a success. Me personally, I'll just
and Sasha Grey could knock on my door and let me ass fuck her, but it ain't gonna happen, is it?
Well, someone might be. I don't know. Does anyone have anything nice to say? Like, it was so bad. Battlefront was so bad it killed Moss's camera. Does anyone have anything nice to say about Battlefront 2? I should open that up.
A post overhaul or pre overhaul?
That counts.
Okay,
because we had to take into effect that Cyberpunk actually Lethal was the one who made this point. Post overhaul, that game really helped revamp a lot of stuff, right? Like, it got that anime because they went in and fixed a bunch of stuff, even though there was a lot of stuff missing, yada, 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 right? So you have to take into effect, basically...
Oh, you want to talk about the post-overhaul? Remember the campaign DLC they added that was just 3 levels of wave defense?
Yeah.
Honestly.
You know, it's stupid, though.
Jono, what do you want to say here?
Oh, well, it's... Like, Postal, I really didn't get that much. That was it. I saw all the reactions at the launch of this game, how everybody was just, like, totally pissed on how broken it was, and the whole, the scummy schemes that they tried to pull that had laws changed, like Lethal was mentioned. It was, I didn't touch it. The only reason why I got it was because it was $5. It was just recently, playing the few times with Blabs and Mazza. I had a lot of fun playing the game, I'll say that. It's fun, but successful? No. I can't say that it's a success.
You do have to equate how it was into it as well.
Yeah. I will say player count, I do think it is successful player count wise. I don't know what, because of retards. Let's be honest, we're talking about the Star Wars community here. Because retards who like shit, they just kept playing it. And because dude, that's bigger than Battlefield like 5 and 2042 out times. Like, they have a bigger player base than some of those games. At times. That's wild. So realistically, player count, it is. Player count wise. Not anything we actually wanted. Player count.
To be fair, I don't believe this game launched on Steam, did it?
Yeah, no, it's mainly a console.
It was on
game.
Origin, I think, at the
time. Yeah,
Origin,
that was it.
On Origin.
It is part of a failure, putting it on Origin.
And
well, Origin itself is somewhat of a failure.
That's one thing that everybody, at least on Twitter, nobody mentions anything beyond SteamDB or the Steam numbers. They don't consider Ubisoft or any of the other launchers. As much as we hate them, they're still a factor at play. People still do use those launchers.
Well, they don't give us numbers. That's the hard part.
And that's the one thing, some transparency and honesty would be great from these companies. And if they're proud of what they have, come out, sing it loud and proud.
One quick thing about the EA and Origin thing is most people on PC still play those editions because when you go back to Steam, I'm pretty sure it resets. You're a shit, right? Because it's not crossplay, right? Am I right about that?
No, you are correct. You are correct.
Yeah.
I believe now it forces you, if you have the Steam version, to launch Origin.
Okay.
But if you already, it does. Yeah, because it goes through my... Like, when I go to add people to play the game, it goes through EA, even though I own it on Steam. So there is that, but also, why would you buy the game a second time if you already own it? And it was working, I guess, fine to play with. Although I don't think the Origin app or the EA Play app that has come after it are very good. Does anyone else have any arguments for or against Battlefront 2 by DICE? The classic.
Starting off on a positive note, I'm not good at them. I was never good at them, but the Jedi battles post like all the patches and reworks, like when I watch them, they do look like they have like a complexity and like really dynamic like mechanics in terms of dueling with another lightsaber user. Do you agree with Freakboy Moss? Because you look like you were about to say, nah, it's fucking shit.
When I play, it's just fucking autism. It's just
that's how it is when you play anything.
Especially with the Jedi power battle thing that they got going on in Battlefront 2, there's so much sweat pouring out of the player base that play that regularly. It's ridiculous.
Parries, stamina.
One
work-ins. It looks quite complex. The game
one thing
itself.
okay.
Yeah. Oh,
No,
well,
you
I'll
go,
just
you
say,
go.
I'll finish off with the game itself. Like, what Star Wars Battlefront did so well was the combined synergy, just like the original Fields, was a combined synergy of teamwork player base. You know, like an engineer to keep the vehicles repaired, a medic to drop drop health and stuff, supports doing like giving ammo, and then the snipers who could have in this game done spotting and suppression fire, picking out high value targets as well. Whereas in this game, the class system just does not hit as effectively anywhere near. There's no synergy there. You could pick a class which just is based off the ability, and people go with like the best ability, secondary ability, and then they'll just equip a
This game, I never stage had a galactic conquest mode.
Never had a galactic conquest. And then it comes to the map design. The map design was so bad. In the originals, there was this like constant like dynamic. Players could go which way, whatever, because it was just a big fuck off circle of a map with multiple like in Hoth, you had like all the tunnels and stuff in one area, and then it's like a huge open area in another. The floating city on the gas giant
Bespin Cloud.
The cloud city on that had like multiple layers, like horizontal. I think I'm saying that one right, but it was like, you know, there was layers of walkways, catwalks, and bridges and stuff. So it was just like, oh my god, they could be anywhere. It was like a Stalingrad. Whereas in the new games, it just feels like corridor, go forward.
Yes,
you're just a Russian conscript in those games, like dead, you know, until one of you wins.
I really hate the fucking card system too, because oh my fuck, if you do not have those cards, you are fucked. You are so fucked.
There was very clear. There's very clear metas in that game as well. Like for example, Kylo Ren had a star card. Star cards are effectively perks that you could upgrade, but he had one where it was something along the lines: if he was near other, obviously because he's a villain, if he was near other villains, he got a massive damage increase. So if you played heroes versus villains and your squad just stayed together, Kylo's doing so much fucking damage. There was very clear metas.
Yep.
I never played Battlefront for a few reasons. I mean, I played a bit of the original on PlayStation 2, not the new one. One of the reasons I didn't play the new one was because I was quite jaded against EA after a number of experiences with their multiplayer games. I think Mass Effect 3 was the last one I tried. And just making players go through their stupid launcher and go through their authentication server that you have to just pray is working. And a lot of the time it wasn't. That was like infuriating. And then I was following Battlefront. I was kind of intrigued by it because, I mean, to give it some positive light, I mean, looking at the promotion material of it, it looked like had a polished appearance, at least on the surface. The sound design was there, the music was there. It felt very Star Wars audio and visually. And I think the current amount of players still playing it, I think, is an example of the power of brand and IP, because it's like, it's Star Wars, right? People want to play a Star Wars game, and it just looks and feels that way, despite all the gameplay problems, which I wasn't aware of, Lethal, but what you described, that's all sounds fucking terrible. And honestly, with considering that it's EA at the helm, it doesn't surprise me either. And I was also quite closely following the egregious monetization practices that it was doing, which made me want to stay away from it entirely. Like, honestly, it was so bad that it kind of felt gross to buy that game and be a part of it. I was just like, I'm not fucking, I want no part in that. Like, that just cut off interest for me personally. So,
all right. Well, I think I can guess how this one's going to go, but we'll go through it anyways. John, was Battlefront 2 a success or not?
I can't get on board with it now.
Nosmir. John O.
Big thumbs down.
Maza, I know you're going to give it a success.
Fuck no.
I thought you were gonna give it success just for
I
the meme
was
to be the only
for
one.
the meme because fuck Lethal for giving Cyberpunk a success, but I can't. I can't in goodwill. I can't rig that vote.
And Lethal obviously doesn't fucking like the game, and I don't either. To be fair, yeah. All right.
Let
that
me
one's
show
not a
you
success.
one last thing. There's one last thing that I want to show you guys with how much I fucking truly despise this. Okay, I fuck DICE. All right, I know we can sit there and go it was EA and it was EA, but fuck modern day DICE. Modern day DICE is my least favorite. They're worse than 343. Okay, I fucking hate these cocksuckers. Right, and during Battlefront 2's life cycle, the amount of times these cocksuckers got caught fucking lying. Let me show you one image as well, okay?
Talking Battlefront 2 or 2042? A Battlefront 2. Okay.
This one, Battlefront 2 2017, right?
Got it.
Now, I understand when people find shit coming early to the game, maybe for legal reasons or whatever, you can't confirm it, okay? I get that. But this was one of the images they put out for some upcoming content, which was to show off the skins of the Clone Trooper Legions. Fantastic, cool. People took a closer look at this image and discovered something in it and got hyped, okay? What they discovered was droidicas, okay? In this image, down there is droidicas. Right? Droidica. And people got fucking hyped about that. They're like, oh, cool, we're finally getting droidicas. Because, yes, droidicas were not in this game at launch, okay? So when the player base started to get hype about droidicas, what did DICE say this was? That's not a droidica. That's environmental clutter. Suck my fucking ass. And they even admitted after droidica came out, they were like, yeah, clearly it's droidica. Why can't you just be like, we got caught. We showed something we weren't supposed to show. Fuck this game.
Yep. Fuck Battlefront 2. And before we finish up, I have one more game to offer. Now, Battlefront 2 was a resounding failure by all of our standards. But what about the breakout game of the year? The breakout game of the year, I should say. Okay? Take your Elden Ring Shadow of Erdtree. Take your Black Myth Wukong, your Helldivers, your Power Worlds, your Space Marine 2s, your Call of Duty Black Ops 6 being a resurgence. Shove it up your ass. Because, ladies and gentlemen,
Wow,
we're talking about Banana.
Oh.
this one is going to be a difficult. Is the game Banana a success? I'm just going to leave it open, guys.
You threw a fucking curveball there. I thought you were going to go with Concord, bro.
I thought he was going to say Concord.
Yeah, same.
I think we all agree Concord was a failure, but Banana, was that a success or was it a failure?
As a game, it's a failure. As what it was designed to be, a success.
but they did
But you
exactly
gotta put
what
the
they
two of them
said.
together. You got to
They-
put
they-
the two
they-
of them together. Is it a success or is it a failure? We can't distinguish. We have to have
Well,
one. No
That game
nuance
proved how
allowed.
retarded people are.
Is there talks about a banana too?
We had
need
Cucumber,
one.
which was like a spin-off game.
Well, there you
That
go.
was-
And that flopped. And that flopped hardcore. But I don't consider Banana to be a game almost to the
Okay,
same
full
extent.
stop.
Almost to the same extent that I think God of War Ragnarok is more of a movie. Okay? So there's an interesting one for
So
you.
clicker
But
games aren't games.
Yeah, that's a question. Are clicker games games? Are games that are more
Point and
idle
click
where you play-
adventures? Point and click adventures are absolutely a video game, but
What
Banana
about-
is there to mine crypto.
What about Adventure Tycoon or Adventure Capitalist? Sorry,
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
some
that's a
games where you
video
just-
game. There's like resource
there's-
management and shit like that, but it's
it's
just
really-
There's
Banana's
like
just a dumbed down version of that.
that's still a video game,
So-
but it's Banana is not designed for a player. It's designed for a crypto miner.
Yeah,
I have a hard
well,
time defining this type of thing as a video game because there's no endpoint. Like the numbers just keep going up and up and up. It's like Cookie Clicker, Adventure Capitalist, Banana, where you can't really win. I feel like there needs to be a win condition. And I'm also somebody who thinks a game doesn't necessarily need a fail state to be a video game. For anybody who might not be aware, fail state often they're like losing a life, getting a game over. The player is punished for not playing the game in a particular way or with enough skill. Like there's a lot of like liminal space exploration games on Steam, which I'm actually quite a big fan of. And that's just about getting from A to B and navigating an environment. There's no fail state. You can't die. You can't play badly, except, if you get easily confused by the environment and you can't find your way. I suppose that's kind of a failure, but not really. And you can get to the end of the game based on your input. You can get from A to B and complete the game. I feel like those are the minimum requirements. I mean, we can have a discussion about that. I mean,
well, how would that
opinions
work with something like Adventure Capitalist then? Because there isn't really an end to that game either. You just keep clicking.
Right. Yes.
At some point, it just auto clicks for you too. So at some point, you're not even clicking, but it keeps going. But I still think that has to be considered a game. Whereas with Banana, you still got to click. That's one thing Banana does. It forces you to interact.
I think there's certainly an argument for the experience itself being sort of the end game of it, where the point is to the sensation of watching all the numbers go up and seeing how much you've amassed. But it feels like it doesn't really like go anywhere. Yeah. And eventually you'll just like get tired of it. That's like the end of the game, basically, is you get bored and you're just like, oh fuck, who cares?
Yeah, fucking hand cramps.
That's true.
It's interesting. Yeah.
There are a ton of games that they do have a way to fail, but there isn't really a defined end game. It's just kind of you end when you want to end. For example, some of my favorite games are like paradox strategy games. There isn't really an end game to it. You just keep playing until your computer tells you to fucking stop, please, and it catches fire. Even if you conquer the entire planet in the game, you're still going to have rebellions. You're not going to be able to fully put those down. So there's always something else for you to do. There isn't really an end game. There is a way to fail in that game, but with Banana, the only difference is you just can't fail, really. And obviously mechanic differences. But yeah, anyone else have some esoteric thoughts on the game Banana?
Going off what John said, like, would you consider if, I don't know, some director really, like, Denis, the Dune director released a new movie and it was just a 24/7 stream of CCTV of Birmingham in London, in England. Would you say that's a movie? Like, that would be, and it never ends. It's just a stream, but it's displayed on the big screen forever.
I don't think you can call that a movie personally, but that's interesting.
What if But what could you consider it a TV show, like a reoccurring series? Though I think that's a better example, because movies, but TV shows, it could keep going and going and going, right? And what if there were stories interweaving? Like, what if somebody goes to the fucking, I don't know, whatever someone goes to the Aldi's at Birmingham, and all of a sudden there's a lovers' quarrel that's being. But then 2 weeks from now, but 2 weeks from now they make up in the middle of the rain and they kiss, and that's that arc of the story done. But it's all done on CCTV.
Yeah, well, because like even if it was just like CCTV on a loop 24/7, because that would be what like Banana is. Yeah, just the same game on a loop, but you just see number go up, I guess. So I was just trying to gauge there if people would consider that a movie. Can you consider, and if you don't, how can you consider Banana a game?
But if his mission was to go and just to troll to see how much fuckheads would actually do it, it's a success, because it's the biggest troll win ever. It's just a bunch of fuckheads clicking a banana.
I think he said that he definitively proved that the game and market space now is fucked with consumers.
My perspective on this Banana game in particular is that
bananas and play your game.
Well, with this Banana game, it doesn't seem like they're going after like the same conventional goals that every other developer goes when they're making a game. To get people, they weren't looking to like sell a game to find success there. They're more like creating a market buy sell with these bananas, basically the data, the whole crypto thing, where you can, through Steam Market, you can buy and sell the bananas that you earn through the game. Through that way, in that perspective, kind of far off, offshoot from gaming itself, it's a great big success. I've never seen a game like this make numbers and have people so involved with it before.
It's fucking stupid.
I know.
It's
that's
ridiculously
why-
stupid, but it's
that's
the
why I
intent.
have
That's
to-
it.
That's why I have to call it a success, because it proved to us how fucking
It's-
stupid humanity
Well,
is. And
I just see that they had different goals than what we're used to seeing when it comes to video games, and as far as I'm seeing, they met those
Yeah,
goals.
so it's a success.
it's a dub.
Well,
It's a
with
dub.
that, I guess we'll take a vote from everyone. John, was banana a success?
You know what? It is what it is. Some people get a
Good
little
choice of words.
fucking. They get a little thrill out of it of seeing the number go up, and I remember playing fucking Cookie Clicker, and I would wake up in the morning being like, "Oh, how many cookies do I have today? Oh, I can buy a fucking Cthulhu monster to make like millions of cookies per second or whatever the fuck." But eventually, I was just like, But while it lasted, it actually did draw my attention a bit, and whatever. I'll give it a thumbs up. Fuck it.
Nos,
Let's
is
go.
banana a success?
I'm going to be the autistic Puritan and stick with my guns on how, I judge success by the quality of the game and the mechanics, and I'm going to say no.
No,
It is
Oh,
fuck you.
you're a fuck you.
How can they improve clicking on a banana?
Yeah,
that's
they
the
gave
whole
you what
point
they
of the
wanted.
mechanics. They actually executed the mechanics perfectly.
No, you do
Yeah, no,
just from the very
but they're-
concept itself, it's a bad
they're-
game. Like,
No, but they're objective. They
Yeah.
were successful in what they wanted to achieve.
You got what you were gonna. You got what they
You
were selling.
they didn't mislead you.
Yeah.
No, right. That's an
got it.
important point.
I think you have
That's a good point. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
actually a really good point. They didn't lie.
It
People
turned
know what
on,
they're buying with
didn't
this
bug
thing.
out.
They're not even buying it. They're giving it to you for free. And they're not even misleading you.
Mate, I don't care. Like, if
They
they
did
didn't
no
lie,
marketing, no misleading marketing. I think
don't
you have to give it a
It's the
success.
greatest game of
if
all
the concept
time.
was you hook your balls up to a car battery and every time you click, they bolt you, right? I still
if
think
it
that's
hurt,
a bad concept.
And it
you
was
know?
meant to be hurt.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
They're meant
it's a
to you
success.
to be sterilized. I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, it's a bad.
Vasectomies
What-
are meant to go into
What
your
happened if
balls
that
and
game
make
had
it so
millions
you
of
can't have
players
kids.
playing it?
Yeah.
What about you? What about you, Jono?
When banana game, gonna have to give it a thumbs up because it's unconventional goals, and they met them.
Moz?
It's the greatest troll of all time, and I love it, baby. It's the greatest game of all time.
All right, I don't know about
Seeing
that.
the words banana right next to games like Dogma and all the games that didn't hit 1 million, I'm just saying my game hit 1 million players. Let's go,
My
baby.
game banana.
My game
Honestly, it
banana.
should be nominated for Game of the Year just for shits and giggles. Lethal, what do you think about banana?
I was a loyal follower of the doctrine that Nazma was transcribing. However, I feel like the Arbiter from Halo 2. I was a loyal follower, but I have seen the fucking truth. I have seen it for myself.
And it is banana, and it is yellow.
Nazma,
I'm
Nazma, put down the icon.
I'm sending a gorilla with a sledgehammer to your house as we speak.
I'll give him a banana.
Exactly. Banana win.
Let's go.
Nazma, put down the icon. The prophets have betrayed us.
Oh my god, man!
What about you, Cream? Do you think it's a
Bananas-
success?
Banana's better than Cyberpunk. I'll tell you that. Fucking much.
Fucking hell.
Banana had more people saying it was successful than Cyberpunk. I'll say that one person here thinks Banana is not a success, and there was like 3 that didn't think it was. Yeah, Cyberpunk was a
The
success.
story was
Obviously,
the player
but-
base itself.
Obviously, Banana's a
Yeah.
success. I mean,
Everybody
it's a
puts Banana Game for the
retarded
plot.
success. It's really retarded that it's successful, but it is. I wouldn't argue that it's even a fun game to play, but it's still successful. You got to look at everything. It didn't mislead people. it achieved what it wanted to achieve perfectly, which most games don't. That there's like a rare 2% of games that perfectly achieve what they're going for. Banana is one of those 2% of games in human history. It's a success.
It took Wukong to beat its player base. It took
Black Myth Wukong to beat it, and Black Myth Wukong had
Black Myth Wukong, yeah.
Like Black Myth Wukong had issues. Remember the whole thing with DRM? Guess what game ran perfectly fine? Banana. Take that, Wukong fans. Banana ran perfectly fine the entire time.
I really think there is a massive demand for stupidity online. It sounds dumb, but I really think that's the case. I mean, like jokes, memes, YouTube poops, all this kind of shit. Like people crave nonsense to a degree. And you fire up a game like this, the first thing you think is like, oh my God, are you fucking kidding me? And then you get a chuckle out of it, and then that probably gives you just enough interest to actually start fucking clicking the banana. Like, all right, let's do this. Let's do this.
Next thing you know, you're a banana mogul,
and you can't pay rent because you've spent all your time playing banana. Well, with that, I think we'll wrap up there, everybody. John, thank you for joining us. Thank you for coming on. You got anything
Pleasure.
you want to shout out? Anything you want to talk about?
I'm John Graham on YouTube. I do a machinima series called Hard Justice I'm working on. I do RB and the Chief, which is like a live action machinima hybrid show. I'm doing a lot of streams at the moment on the weekends. I'm going through all the old Halo games. That's been a blast. So yeah, subscribe to me on there if you want. Thanks for having me on, guys, again. I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure.
Cinema 2 going hard.
That's right.
We'll get you on a live again soon for the Cinema 2.
Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching us. This is the first time we've done a pod in a while. Blame Lethal. I don't know why. I'm just throwing him under the bus. It's really not even his fault, but we're throwing him under the bus. I want you all to shun this man publicly, and also this man for not saying that Banana is a good game and that it's a success. It's obviously a success. We all agreed, except for Nosmir, because he's on his weird puritanical crusade, jihad even, against Banana, the greatest game of the year. And honestly, it should win Game of the Year. But with that, thank you, everybody. And until next time, eat my ass.